Hey, what's going on, everybody? My name is Guy. This is Guy Talk Sports. Thank you so much for being here with me today. Thanks for clicking on the video, giving me a little bit of your time. It's officially game week, and I am excited. I hope you are too. Last weekend was, I guess Saturday was crazy. Florida State went all the way to Ireland to get beat by Georgia Tech. That's a tough one. So I've been talking about doing a defensive preview, and since it's game week already, I think I'm going to just skip the defensive preview because the depth chart was released today. Now, so we're going to look at that, but buckle up because there are a ton of oars. It is this guy or this guy for just about the whole roster. So we're going to look at that. After that, Josh Heupel had a press conference today, regarding this the game week. UTC coming up, so we're going to talk a little bit about those comments. And then lastly, going to close by taking just a quick look at UTC, which of course is Tennessee's first opponent this Saturday. So real quick, if you want to jump ahead to any particular position or spot in the video, I will put in timestamps down in the description, so you can just jump ahead, click ahead to whatever part of the video you want to listen to. So I'll be sure to put that in. Before we get into any of that, though, if you don't mind, look underneath this screen. There's a subscribe button there. Please go ahead and subscribe. Smash that button for me if you don't mind. Help me continue to grow this channel. Let's get into this. It's exciting. It's officially game week. So Tennessee officially released their depth chart for the beginning of this 2024 season. I'm getting this off of Rocky Top Insider. It's by Ryan Shumpert. I've referenced him before. I'll be sure to put this, this post in the description if you want to click on it and look at the article for yourself. It's really just a rundown of the depth chart. So let's start off with quarterback. We're going offense first. This is from what I've seen, a lot of what we did on the offensive preview seemed to have gotten most of that right. Again, a lot of this is oars, but you kind of have to take those oars with a grain of salt. They don't want to let out any pertinent information to the opponent. So at quarterback, it's going to be Nico, obviously, right? This is really one of the few positions where you don't have an or. You have Nico. Behind him is then Gaston Moore, and then number 3 is Jake Merklinger. I think Gaston had a really, really solid fall camp. I think a lot of people are seeing Jake Merklinger, seeing what he can do, starting to question, should he be the backup? But I think Gaston Moore, for everything I heard, had a really, really great fall camp, and I think he kind of cemented himself in as that number 2 quarterback. I think if Nico goes out a few plays, he's going to be the guy to come in. If it's a few games, then you start to wonder, okay, are they just going to go ahead and put Merklinger in there to see what he can do? Because he might have a higher ceiling than what Gaston does. But Gaston, he's been in the program for years and years. He's got a really good grasp with this offense, and he can make a few plays of his own, in his own right. So no surprise there at quarterback. Let's jump on down to running back. So there are 5 running backs they list, 4 oars. So no one starter is named in the running back position. I think that really surprises me. I guess maybe because Dylan Sampson had that kind of nagging knee issue through fall camp. They want to play that up. But from everything I've heard, he should be full go for this UTC game. It's got Dylan Sampson or Cameron Seldon, which Josh Heupel last week announced that Cam Seldon was full go, which and if he really is, that puts him way ahead of schedule, because a lot of people are even questioning if he was going to be available for the NC State game next week. So the fact that he's available now, that's a big deal. You'd like to see him get a little bit of work, but obviously you don't want to push him back in too early. So it's Dylan Sampson or Cameron Seldon or Deshaun Bishop or Khalifa Keith or Peyton Lewis. So not one starter named for running back. Again, that kind of surprised me. I think everybody is expecting Dylan Sampson to be your starter there. So not sure why they didn't just name him as the starter again, maybe to play up his kind of nagging knee thing. I'm not 100%, but that's what they got as running back. I fully expect Dylan Sampson to be the first guy that's going to carry the ball this Saturday. Let's jump on down to receiver. Once again, it kind of surprises me. So you got, I think everybody is fully expecting Brew McCoy to be your starter, but it says Brew McCoy or Caleb Webb, and then for the third string and that one position, it's going to be Mike Matthews. Look at the slot. It's Squirrel White or Chaz Nimrod, which I think we talked about that in the offensive preview, how Chaz Nimrod had a really good summer, really good fall camp, and he's done a lot. I still think everybody is expecting Squirrel White to get the start, though. They've talked about how they're going to, increase the frequency at which they swap out wide receivers throughout the game, at which they rotate the wide receivers. They have been saying that since they've been here, and I have yet to see that. They typically have 3 or 4 that they like, and then they tend to stick with that the entire season. So, we'll see. I in my opinion, and I think in a lot of people's opinion, they really do need to start increasing the speed at which they're rotating these wide receivers, because you got some young guys like Mike Matthews. He needs to be getting on the field at some point this year. UTC would be a great game to get him in, because recruits notice that. Recruits notice, okay, well, do any of the underclassmen get playing time? And I think it's important that they really start increasing that. Otherwise, you're going to have a lot of angry wide receivers at the end of this year, because it's one of the most loaded groups on the whole team. But anyway, so you got Squirrel White or Chaz Nimrod in the slot, and the number three spot there is Braylon Staley. On the other side, on the outside, Dante Thornton Jr.'s name is mentioned first. It's Dante Thornton Jr. or Chris Brazzell Jr. I don't know if that matters at all. I think, and from what I've heard, a lot of other people think this as well, that Chris Brazzell's probably going to get the start there. But it's going to be a healthy dose of both Chris Brazzell and Dante Thornton on that other outside spot. I think, and then for the number 3 spot there, you got Nathan Leacock. So those are your wide receiver positions. I think, you got Brew McCoy, Squirrel White, and then Chris Brazzell. I think those are going to be your starters. First guy on the field, probably going to be, other than those starters, is probably going to be Dante Thornton. And then also, you got Chaz Nimrod as well, and then Mike Matthews. And then everybody after that, I think, is going to get just minimal playing time. But I think those are your top 6, with those 3 being the starters, in my opinion. At tight end, once again, this position has all oars. I have heard nothing but good stuff coming from the tight end group this fall, and I think that's been a really positive note for fall camp. A lot of people didn't know just how good, was this tight end group going to be. And from all accounts, Miles Kisselman's been an exciting addition, or kind of a positive surprise there in the tight end group. Holden Stays, I think, has been doing good as well, and Ethan Davis has just been making big time plays during the entire fall camp. And so from everything I've heard, the tight end group is going to be pretty special this year, and I think you're going to get all 3 of these guys playing. But it doesn't name a single one of them a starter. I still think it's probably going to be Miles Kitzelman, but it would not surprise me if Ethan Davis gets thrown out there first. Let's run down the offensive line. So you got left tackle. It's going to be Lance Hurd. It says Lance Hurd or Larry Johnson III. It's going to be Lance Hurd. Left guard, you have Andre Carrick or Jackson Lampley. I think from everything I've heard, Andre Carrick is going to get the nod to start. But he was out a lot of fall camp, and so if there was going to be one position on the offense that you could see a bit of a surprise, it's probably that left guard position. But from everything I've heard, Andre Carrick's probably going to get the start there. I do think they're going to try to rotate some people through that position to try and make sure they have the right 5 guys out there, especially when the games start to get a little tougher than what this one is Saturday. And so they got Andre Carrick or Jackson Lampley. At center, one of the few people that are named starters here, and deservingly so, is Cooper Mays. You have Cooper Mays, and then it says number 2, you have either William Satterwhite, which we talked about that in the last video, how he's done a lot of good stuff, or Vyson Lang. And so moving on to the right guard, Javonte Spraggins. Number 2, Sham Uvarov. No surprise there. Right tackle, John Campbell Jr. or Dane Davis. I think everyone's expecting John Campbell Jr. to have that position. Dane Davis will be your first backup tackle in the game. And that's the offensive line. I think that's, pretty similar to what we did in the offensive preview there. Let's run over now to defense. This is where I was going to do this video, due to work, travel, that kind of stuff. I never got to do a defensive preview, but what better time than for them to actually release a depth chart? That being said, it is a lot of oars as well, right? So at Leo, it's kind of that defensive, that edge rusher, the edge rush position. Obviously, James Pierce Jr., everyone's expecting him to trot out there as the starter, but it says James Pierce Jr. or Josh Josephs or Caleb Herring or Jordan Ross. So James Pierce is going to be the starter there, and there's not a doubt in, I think, anybody's mind, as he is most likely a top 10 pick in the NFL, barring anything just absolutely crazy happening this season. So it's most likely going to be him. I know when they do those 3rd and long packages, Josh Josephs has done a lot this offseason to improve himself, and I've heard a lot of good stuff from him. And so it wouldn't surprise me if you have James Pierce Jr. and Josh Josephs on the field at the same time when you get, they call it the rabbit package, cheetah package, whatever they call it, when you get that 3rd and long, it's going to be a passing down. They like to get some of the quicker guys out there. So you may see that kind of combo. Again, you're going to see a lot of people rotated on that defensive line. As deep as that wide receiver group is, the defensive line group is that much deeper. It is deep, by far the deepest group on the whole team, and from all accounts, this is going to be, if not the best defensive line in the country, one of the best. Rodney Garner's done a great job as usual, and so that's the Leo position at defensive tackle. Omari Thomas is probably going to be your starter, one of the starters there. But it says Omari Thomas or Elijah Simmons or Jackson Moy. Omari Thomas is going to get that start. But you do have a lot of people behind him that are going to provide valuable starts. That way, later in the game, Omari Thomas is a little bit fresher and a little bit more chaotic in the middle when we need him to be, right? So the other defensive tackle position, most likely going to be Bryson Eason. You have Bryson Eason or Omar Norman-Lott or David Hobbs. It most likely will be Bryson Eason. You'll still get a healthy dose of Omar Norman-Lott. Devin Hobbs, maybe a little bit less so, but you're going to see all these guys out there. But I think you got Omari Thomas and Bryson Eason as the 2 defensive tackles. For defensive end, you've got Dominic Bailey, who's most likely going to be getting the start there. And then it says, or Tyree West, who's most likely going to be the second guy out, or Jason Jenkins or Tyree Weathersby. I think Dominic Bailey is probably going to get the start there. But again, you have a lot of really good backups. Most of these guys that are playing backup on defensive line could start at other SEC schools. It's that talented of a defensive line group. It's that deep. And it is going to be one of the strengths of this team is defensive line. So let's go on a middle linebacker. You got good old Keenan Pili or Jeremiah Thielander, and then number 3 is Edwin Spillman. I think you're going to get a lot of Keenan Pili. It is, last year, first game, tore his tricep, and I'm sure that had to be tough for him to transfer in. Had a great offseason by all accounts, and then tear a tricep the first game and be out for the rest of the season. That's tough. But from everything I've heard, he has had a really, really productive offseason. I think he's trimmed down a bit, playing fast, and you're going to get a healthy dose of Keenan Pili. And you'll get plenty of Jeremiah Thielander as well. He played okay last year, got a lot of valuable snaps on the field. He's a freshman last year, and I think it's just going to help him for this year. So I think he's a very good backup whenever Keenan Pili does need to come off the field. A weak side linebacker, Arian Carter is going to be your starter. It says Arian Carter or Caleb Perry. Arian Carter is going to be your starter there. Caleb Perry will be the first guy to come out there and help and relieve him. But Arian Carter's going to get the start. Again, everything I've heard is that the linebackers have performed fairly well in fall camp, and that Arian Carter and Keenan Peely have both done a really good job, and expect them to be pretty standout on the defense this year. So let's move on to the kind of sketchy secondary, right? I think, we had that mass exodus last year of all the secondary players that left. So they brought in a ton of guys. It's still one of those things where I have to see it to believe it. Kind of like the wide receiver rotation. I have to see them rotate more players before I believe it. It's the same with the secondary. I have to see them perform better before I will, believe it. For cornerback, your two cornerbacks, you're going to have Ricky Gibson the third, and you're going to have Jermod McCoy, the transfer from Oregon State. From everything I've heard, Jermod McCoy has been absolutely electric. So he's going to be supposed to be pretty exciting this year. A pretty exciting player for us. Ricky Gibson's been very physical. So I think your two starting cornerbacks to start this year, I think are going to be pretty good. Jalen McMurray, transfer. From everything I've heard, he's going to be the next guy in. He's done a pretty good job this offseason as well. And then, so you got Ricky Gibson or Jalen McMurray. I think if Jermod McCoy or Ricky Gibson comes off, you're going to see Jalen McMurray come in there first. Caleb Beasley is the number 3 spot. And then on the other side, you have Jermod McCoy listed as starter, or Jordan Matthews. It's going to be Jermod McCoy. And then William Wright is the number 3 spot there. So that's, you have two, I think, very good starters at cornerback. And then you have one pretty good, fill in there with Jalen McMurray. Other than that, though, I think there's a lot of questions, and so you need these guys to stay healthy. I think you really need these guys to stay healthy. I think, for corner and star, you have a lot of talent. It's just there's not a lot of depth. And so at safety, we'll talk about safety here in a minute, but at safety, I think there's still questions about even the talent level of the safety position. But for cornerback and star, everything I've heard, the talent's there. It's just there's not a ton of depth, and so you really need those guys to stay healthy. You would like to see those guys rotate out early from this UTC game so that they are fresh for NC State. So let's move on to the star position. That is, it's Christian Harrison or Boo Carter. This is this is really the position that I kind of held off on that defensive preview for, because everybody expected Boo Carter once Jordan Thomas went down, Boo Carter to step in and be the starter. But Christian Harrison grabbed the reins and has done a lot of time with the ones, and so it's most likely that you're going to see Christian Harrison go out there as a starter. But I think you're going to get a pretty good mix of him and Boo Carter. I think it's going to be a pretty good 50-50 mix of both, because Boo Carter has so much talent. It's going to be hard to keep him off the field. So let's move on to safety. You have Andre Turrentine, who I think is going to be solid. Behind him, Jacoby Thomas, who's a transfer, and then behind him, John Slaughter. It says Andre Turrentine or Jacoby Thomas. It's going to be Andre Turrentine. I think they wanted to see more development from Jacoby Thomas. I think that's kind of been not necessarily a huge disappointment this fall camp, but definitely one of the smaller disappointments is that he hasn't progressed further than he has. And so Andre Turrentine is going to be the starter, because the other safety is Will Brooks. It is nothing against Will Brooks. He's a walk-on. Nothing against him, though. It's not that I'm a huge critic of him. I think you really question the combination of Will Brooks and Andre Turrentine and their overall talent level compared to even last year. And so the hope is that Will Brooks is a solid player. I hope he is. I'm rooting for him. Definitely not going rooting against these guys or anything. If there's a position in the secondary that there's some questions of, it's probably safety. Again, not hating on him. hope he does nothing but play lights out and shuts everybody up. But there are some questions at safety, and so behind him it says or Christian Charles, and then at number 3 it's Edris Farouk. So Will Brooks, Andre Turntime's most likely going to be your starters, with Jacoby Thomas probably being the first guy out there to relieve one of them. But we'll see. I'm very hesitant about the secondary, and maybe a lot of it's unjust, unwarranted, just because of all the previous years. From everything we've heard, when Josh Heupel's asked about it, he always talked about how excited he is about the secondary. I hope that they are completely shut down. And honestly, you might not even have to have them be that big of a shutdown secondary, because your defensive line is going to be playing so good. And so you don't have to have shutdown secondary, but Josh Heupel's been really high on them all fall camp. Hopefully they show up and produce. So we will see about that. At special teams, for kicker, Josh Turbeville or Max Gilbert, and then number 3 is J.D. Carver. You're probably going to be Turbeville there. Kickoff specialist, Josh Turbeville is number 1, Max Gilbert number 2. At punter, you got Jackson Ross number 1, Josh Turbeville number 2. It's no question there. Jackson Ross, by all accounts, has had another great offseason. He was really, really good for us last year. Special teams continues to be really, really dominant under Josh Heupel, and I expect nothing to change there, because Jackson Ross is going to be really, really good. Holder, you got Jackson Ross. Long snapper, it says either Matthew Solansky or Bennett Brady. I don't know much about either of those guys. Kick returner says either Cameron Seldon or Deshaun Bishop. It would not surprise me, especially with Cam Seldon just now coming back, if you see a healthy dose of Deshaun Bishop back there. Maybe even somebody else that they might try to put back there. Maybe they throw in Boo Carter or something like that. But on the depth chart, it says Cam Seldon or Deshaun Bishop. Punt returner says either Cam Seldon, Jermod McCoy, or Boo Carter. Would not surprise me again if you see Boo Carter come out there at the beginning, because he is a very, very, very talented player. But I think that's it. That's it on the depth chart. Like I said, a lot of oars. Sorry if it got a little mundane there, but I wanted to get through all these position groups. Again, I'm going to post that link in the description box so you can pull this up yourself if you'd like. Really happy about the defensive line. Everything on the offensive line. Left guard, maybe a bit of a question. From all accounts, you hope running back can produce. But on defensive line's looking great. Linebackers looking great. The starting cornerbacks, and including star as well. A lot of talent, maybe not as much depth as you'd like. Safety, probably the bigger question out of the group. And so you hope they play good, and you hope that you get some more development from Jacoby Thomas throughout the season. And that's all I got on that one. All I got on depth chart. So let's shift gears now. I'm going to just do a very, very brief overview of some of Josh Heupel's comments. This is in no way verbatim. This is me just taking a listen to some of the questions and how he was responding. Basically, super excited about game week, finally getting into football season. He talked about how good UTC is, which we'll talk about that here in a second. He was asked a lot about Nico. Talked about how he needs to be handling the emotions, and how Nico's been really good. This is his first home start, and so he did make a big point to bring up veteran leadership, and how it's he really hammered it home that the older guys needed to lead. And so he really made a point about bringing that up, how the veterans needed to step up and show the younger guys, this is how we take care of business. And then he, once again, and I think he's brought this up in a few other press conferences, talked about really emphasizing red zone scoring. That is something that Tennessee was not great at last year, and I know that's something they're trying to improve. With Brew McCoy, it makes a big difference that you have him on the field, because he's just a bully out there. Especially when you get in the tight windows in the red zone. I think you have a really good tight end group as well. I would like to see some two tight end sets. Tennessee plays so fast, so you might not see that, but it'd be nice to see some 2 tight end sets because you have a lot of talent in that group as well. That's really about it. I'm not really see anything or hear anything else that I make note of. Definitely, you can always look it up on YouTube. So, definitely take a look or take a listen if you want to see more of that. All right. So, lastly, let's take a quick look at UTC, the University of Tennessee Chattanooga mocks. Right. So, this is on herosports.com. This is by Sam Herder. He posted this back in June. I will also put this in the description box if you want to check this article out. Please do. He kind of breaks down UTC ranks them number 10 for FCS preseason top 25. They are supposed to be a really good FCS team, so they are not by any means a pushover FCS team, but it is still an FCS team no less. So. They are projected to be pretty good this year. They have 3 returning all-conference players. You have offensive lineman Reed Williams, defensive tackle Marlon Taylor, and then wide receiver Javen Watley. Had a few, and talks about some of the transfers that came in. A lot of transfers, mercy. And then offensive outlook. So, like last year, scored 27.5 points a game, which was number 44 in the FCS. They had the number 26 passing offense. Their quarterback is returning. I think it's for his Chase Artapaeus, however you say that. It's his 6th season, and it's his 2nd with the Mocs. So I think it says he's a transfer from UCLA. Had a pretty good year last year, and is expected to be a really good quarterback this year. They're returning 2 of their top 3 wide receivers, 3 of their starters on offensive line. So this is a group that's expected to be pretty good this year. They're expected to be towards the top of the FCS. Defensively, they allowed 24.5 points per game last year. They were number 44 in the FCS last year with that. They returned 7 of their starters and the top 4 tacklers of their group there. So that's important as well. They had a ton of guys transfer in on defense. So again, this is a group that is expected to perform really, really well in the FCS. By no means am I saying that this should be a close game. I'm just saying this is a good FCS team, not a bad FCS team. So either way, Tennessee should handle their business, should win by probably 30 or 40 points. You hope. If they don't, maybe they're just trying to find their flow this first game, but you really, really do need to see them, perform really well. You'd like to see Tennessee rotate a ton of younger guys, get some experience, let some of the younger running backs get out there, get the secondary rotating, get the wide receivers rotating, get everybody. Everybody needs to be rotating to try and get everybody ready for the next week. Because NC State, I said this a few weeks ago on a video, that really sets the tone for the season is this NC State game. It needs to be a big time win there. So get this game going, score, go up early, get the starters out, rotate younger guys in, and get out of there without any injuries. I think ultimately, if you had a number 1 goal here, get out of this game without any injuries, and you'll be doing good. So that is all I have on this one. Sorry if it got a little mundane running through all those positions. There was a lot of them to cover. But how are you feeling about this? I can't believe it's already game week. This has been a long, long, long off season. It is so nice to finally get to watch some Tennessee football again. I cannot wait. Football is definitely my favorite sport to watch. And it's probably my favorite sport to talk about as well. So I'm very, very excited about this season and how it gets going on Saturday. So for the game, it is going to be, it says on the SEC Network. It's this Saturday. It's going to be at 12:45 p.m., so it's a little bit earlier. Get this game out of the way. That way you can watch some of the more interesting matchups. Georgia and Clemson play at 12, so that's going to be a good game to watch. I expect Georgia to handle Clemson pretty thoroughly. One game to note, I believe NC State plays Western Carolina Thursday at 7, so that might be a fun game to check out, just kind of a little pre-scouting for the next week to see how well they do. That's all I got for this one. Thank you so much for watching. I really do appreciate it. Last video performed very, very well. It's gotten way more likes than I've ever gotten on a video, so I really do appreciate each and every one of you. It means so much to me that you watch the video, that you drop a comment, tell me, how are you excited about this season? What are your favorite games coming up? How do you feel about UTC? How do you feel about Nico? Hit the like button. Again, it means so much to me for every like that gets there. Every view, means a lot to me. So I really do appreciate that. Thank you so much for everything. If you don't mind, hit that subscribe button. Help me continue to grow this channel. Tell somebody about this. That's really is one of the best ways to continue to help me grow this channel, is just tell somebody about it. Tell somebody, check out Guy Talk Sports. Once again, thank you so much for everything. I really do appreciate it. I may or may not do another video this week until game time. I'll definitely try to get a post-game reaction video going once that game's over on Saturday. So expect that. But if I don't see you again, go Vols. Thank you so much. Hopefully we're going to smack the Mocs back down to Chattanooga. Thank you so much. Go Vols. We'll see you next time.